Good morning and welcome to another edition of 6 Feet Apart. Today I want to take you back in time to when I was really young. It was back in the days before ADD was really a thing. I was struggling in school big time. I was getting in trouble all the time and not even sure why. I could not focus. There would be different moments where I would find myself completely out of my seat, doing something that I shouldn't have been doing, and I didn't even know how I got there. Little did I know, and little did the teachers or the school administrators know, or my parents even, that I was struggling with attention deficit disorder. And to put it on top of that, I had the hyperactive rendition, which was awesome. But in all reality, it really kind of came home to roost when my principal called my parents in the second grade, and I remember them just being frustrated to no end, not knowing what to do with me. And so they called a conference where they wanted to sit down with my parents, all of my teachers, and man, it was like the last thing I wanted to do. Why? Well, because I knew that the things that had been going on at school weren't great, and I didn't want to talk about it, and I didn't know how to deal with it, and so my desire was just to not show up. But being in second grade, I went where my parents went, and so we showed up, and it was a tough meeting. Here's the reality, is that if you're a follower of Christ, you know that this world is not all that there is. In fact, not even the things that we do with our hands, our time, our energy only matters for the here and now. God cares, and He's actually watching what we do. For some of you, that's a haunting reality, especially when you take into consideration the last 6 weeks of quarantine, where we've been engaging in close proximity to other personalities and relationships. And some of us, we know there have been some flare-ups, some challenges, some moments where things have been revealed in us that we didn't really want to even confront and have been able to cover up because of busyness in other seasons. But we know that things aren't all peachy keen. So what do we do with the fact that we know that God sees and that He knows? And not only that, there's going to be a day where we stand before God and we get to talk to Him about our life. Does that bring fear to your soul? What about the idea that today, each day, the God of all creation wants to spend intentional, intimate time with you? Does that make you squirm? Does that make you get nervous and want to avoid? And that may manifest itself in a number of different ways of avoidance. Of maybe when you think about that, you want to go and lose yourself in some storyline or work or whatever it may be. But my desire is that you wouldn't run from the God who loves you and sent His Son to redeem you, but that you would look Him straight in the eyes and see that actually you're not an enemy of God any longer if you've taken the hand of God. In Christ, we see the heart of God come to earth, who came to seek and save that which is lost. So, what do we do with this idea? When Paul talks about it, he gives us a little bit of information. In Colossians chapter 1, verse 21, he says this, "And you who were once alienated and hostile in mind, doing evil deeds, He has now reconciled in His body of flesh by His death in order to present you holy and blameless and above reproach before Him." Isn't that intriguing? The idea that God looked from heaven and saw those who were at odds with Him and did everything necessary to bring us back together with Him. I hate that feeling when I know that I've let down another person or the Lord, that feeling of darkness or disgust or frustration or embarrassment or guilt. You know what? That's not what you were designed for, nor is it the way that God designed you to live eternity. I can't wait for the day where God finishes His final work of renewing my heart, that there'll be no waiting for the other shoe to drop, that there'll be no shame about mistakes of the past, that there'll be no fear of accusation, that the feeling of unholiness won't plague my feelings as Satan tries to accuse me. That's not the idea that God has for our eternity. He actually reconciled us through the death of His Son in order for the purpose of presenting you holy, blameless, and above reproach before Him. That, can you imagine? Standing in the presence of the Almighty, all-holy God and feeling perfectly without blemish. That's the idea of holiness. It's being so pleasing to the Lord that you're able to rest in his presence without fear of exposure. What would it be like to be blameless and above reproach, to be free from accusation? I can't wait until Satan is once and for all silenced, that no longer will accusations come against us as we lean in towards Jesus. Listen, the heart of God is this, is that he has once and for all reconciled you to himself through the death of his son on the cross. And if you have trusted in that, even today, God looks at you as holy. He looks at you through the eye and lens of the cross that sees the finished work of Jesus as already making you acceptable in his sight. So listen, God has done a profound work that will be completed one day. Our role today is to embrace our true identity as reconciled sons and daughters, and for us to surrender our life and allow God to continue to remove the blemishes, to continue to remove all of the brokenness as we pursue ourselves becoming like Jesus through the power of God's renewing work within us. Today, I hope that if you sweat at the idea of encountering God or having a quiet moment of allowing him to explore what's going on below the surface, would you take the faithful step of believing the gospel that Jesus has conquered your sin? He has removed every blemish, every unholiness, every impurity, so that you are able, even today, to be at peace in his presence. Allow him to come in and continue to renovate your soul, even in this moment. God bless you. Have a great day.